All right, so you just got kicked off of Mailchimp and you don't know why, right? So there's a lot of people out there that I know that have gotten kicked off of their ESPs and kind of like left scratching their head wondering what happened? Why did I get kicked off? So in this video, I'm actually going to explain to you the number one reason why let's say 80, probably about 98% of ESPs kick you off their platform. So here we go. So the number one reason why most businesses get kicked off of an ESP is all due to this beautiful thing we call abuse reports, right? This is actually called the spam report or the feedback loop rate, right? That is the technical term, feedback loop. Now, what is this? This is basically when you send an email message to your users, right? If a user hits the spam button, that actually records on the feedback loop, right? Now, the feedback loop is something that is used to gauge your email reputation, right? Now, we all know when it comes to email marketing, it's all about being able to hit the inbox, right? Now, being able to hit the inbox is all based on your email reputation, right? That's what it's based on. Now, there's a lot of different factors that go into your email reputation. But when you're dealing with an ESP, remember you are mailing on their space, okay? Now, maintaining a pristine space, which means keeping these abuse reports low, is the number one thing that most ESPs are trying to manage, okay? This is why they have zero tolerance, right? The Mailchimps of the world, if you go against or if you have above the 0.1% threshold in terms of complaints, they will kick you off, right? They have literally, there's no second chances with most of them, and with good reason, right? So now what can you do to ensure, right, that you don't get kicked off the next ESP? Because this is the problem that a lot of people have, is they will get kicked off of Mailchimp, but what ends up happening is that they don't really know what the issue is, so they end up signing up to a new ESP only to get kicked off again, okay? So what do you do in this case? Okay, so firstly, the first thing you always want to do in these particular cases is you always want to be always monitoring your abuse reports all the time, always. And the very, very easy way to do that is obviously depending on which ESP you're using, you'd always check either the abuse reports or the feedback loops, depending on how they have it titled. Okay, it really depends. Some ESPs will actually even group it together with the unsubscribes. Okay, so now let's just say in this particular case, I was coming dangerously close to the threshold for Mailchimp. Okay, I did get one abuse report, okay, one, and I want to find out who this was so I can avoid this going further. Now, this, of course, is a Mailchimp example. So what you're going to basically do in this particular case is you're going to go to activity and you're going to go to the complained users. Okay, you're going to see basically which domain is complaining. All domains are different, and most domains do not speak to one another when it comes to email reputation. Okay, Gmail does not speak to Yahoo. Yahoo does not speak to AOL. AOL doesn't, well, actually, Yahoo and AOL do speak to one another nowadays, but Microsoft does not speak to Yahoo, and so on and so forth. None of these guys speak to one another. Okay, so that's the thing. And also data is very different, right? A Microsoft user is very different from an AOL user, very different from a Yahoo user. Okay, think of them almost like an Android user versus an iPhone user. Very, very different. Okay, so this is why you want to understand where your complaints are coming from. In this particular case here, I can see that my complaint was coming from Hotmail. So that's the number one thing I want to do. First is I want to find out which domain is complaining the most, first and foremost. So here I know it's Hotmail. Okay, so let's just say in this particular case, I had 3 other AOL complaints. Since I only have one here with Hotmail, I'm going to just pretend I had other AOLs, okay? So let's just say here my complaint now was 5, okay, which is way beyond the threshold for Mailchimp. So in this particular case, what I would do is I would view the reports. I would see that most of the complaints are coming from AOL. So what would I do? I have 2 choices here in this particular case, okay? Now, depending on how I'm tracking all of this, and this is a little bit more advanced, but I do definitely recommend it for anyone that sends email marketing messages, because again, if you're trying to optimize your business, really you're going to being able to leverage your email marketing to work with your lead gen is really going to be able to, you're going to be able to 3x your income very easily if you're actually passing your sources along. This way you can optimize the sources for your email. Okay, so in this particular case, what I would do is I would track the source of all of these complainers that are coming from AOL. Okay, that's what I would do, is track source first. If I could track the source, what I would do is basically then stop the source. Okay, stop the source. If you're not tracking the sources and you're still having problems with this, then what I always suggest is basically eliminating, right, or basically suppressing, right, suppressing all of the AOL addresses until you find a way to basically get rid of the source that's complaining. Because as I mentioned, right, a Hotmail user is going to be very different from an AOL user. Okay, AOL users, in all honesty, typically complain 3 times more. This is why it's important to know where your complaints are actually coming from. This way, when you move to a new email service provider, you can avoid this issue. Okay, you can avoid it. Now, another tip, right? Tip number 3, okay, is if you do get kicked off your ESP, the most important thing you want to do is you want to ensure that you are actually exporting the user, okay, and you suppress that user. Because what ends up happening with a lot of people, right, that get kicked off their ESP is they're just going to re-upload their list into the new email service provider. And what ends up happening is that that person that just complained, right, that the person that just complained beforehand is going to complain again, okay? And you're going to be stuck in this vicious ESP kickoff cycle, right? You're just going to constantly get kicked off. So that's it, guys. This is basically, how to avoid getting kicked off. That's 3 simple tips of how to avoid getting kicked off your ESP. If you have any questions or concerns, just type in the comment box below. Thanks so much, guys.